You're on.
What we have here is a Johnson Outboard engine converted to steam. And as you can see, when the crankshaft turns, the propeller turns, and this is all part of the original Johnson engine. The Johnson engines, up until the last couple of years, were all two-cycle. And being a two-cycle engine, as you can see, it's two cylinders. These were where the spark plugs were. Here's the exhaust manifold, which comes down from the bottom, goes into here, comes out down here somewhere. And what is also interesting about this is we happen to have converted the two-cycle engine into a steam engine by adding poppet valves. And here are the poppet valves right here. And if you can see them going up and down. And in order to get the poppet valves, what Mr. Jones did, which was absolutely fascinating, is he took a regular 3.5 horse Briggs & Stratton engine, or something very similar, and if you look here, you will see here are the two valves, intake and exhaust, two valves, intake and exhaust, and the half around here happens to be the cylinder right there. So what Mr. Jones did was he sliced this thing with a hacksaw. Then, even more interesting, is he came down here and he sliced this right here, because he had the intake and exhaust ports here. Then he had the valve guides for the stems of the poppet valves here, and that is this rectangle, which is this rectangle. And if you could really look closely, you could see that the cooling fins here are the cooling fins right here, which he sliced off and ground down nearly all the way down. So this part of this casting was welded on to the original outboard, and several other things were done. One thing that was done was a lubricating oil injection pump was added, which was this thing right here, and a very, very small diameter piston is there. This eccentric was put on the connecting rod here to run the oil pump. And then, because you're turning a 4-cycle valve train into a 2-cycle, we had to run it with sprockets and a chain. So we're going to have to speed up in a regular 4-cycle engine, the camshaft is running at half crankshaft speed, so we have this at a 1-to-1, so it's running at the same speed. And if you look here, you can see that we are getting these to open. And then what you have to do is you have to make your own cams, because we want to have an intake valve and an exhaust valve open every single revolution, because steam acts like a 2-cycle instead of a 4-cycle. So that was kind of interesting how it was done. We have over here a large oil tank which was added. Over here we had a number of little small tubes which came out of our various ports, came around here and went into the intake here, which is where the spark plugs were, and that was all welded up, and these little fittings were added. And so that's kind of interesting, if you ask me. I'm sure there are other ways and probably better ways to do this, but if you don't have any money and don't have a lot of time and don't want to spend all year machining something, this is how you do things. You borrow the poppet valves, the valve guides, and the place where the cams went from a 4-cycle engine. You weld them onto the side of a 2-cycle engine, and away you go. I've never seen anything like this in my life. There's any number of people have modified 4-cycle engines to steam engines, and there are all kinds of ways to do it, each one more clever than the one before. And so here we go.